Okay. Welcome to another great episode of, you say it, brother,
The Beach Brothers Show.
So look, the Beach Brothers Show is a show where we deal with Virginia business and politics.
Well, I'm Conrad. I'm a Hampton Roads political activist. Best ideas for community improvement happen to drive me.
I help folks that are approaching retirement and in their retirement years.
I have what I call the empowerment agenda, and that means that everything I do is focused on empowerment. You want to give a salute to Tally and Twine. It's time for you to have a high quality watch made in Virginia, made in Portsmouth, Virginia, from Tally and Twine. We want to say thanks to Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier for their great level of sponsorship. If you need a new car, you don't need to go far. Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier. And ladies, if you want your brows to say, wow, check out IamLitaWee.com. Microblading by IamLitaWee.com. I'm Seiko Varner. I do credit fixes, tax resolutions. I lend private money to real estate investors, and we do debt consolidations. If you need any of these services, contact me as provided. And now it's time to get beachy on the Beach Brothers Show. Yeah, what's up, beachies? Yeah, it's time to get beachy. Welcome to another great episode of the Beach Brothers Show, where we deal with business and politics. I'm more Mr. Empowerment. This guy here, he's more Mr. Politics. Mm-hmm. This guy right here is the business meets politics meets business. He's a strange mix.
I could see both of you.
Hey, good brother, why don't you start us off with the podiums, man?
All righty.
So is that me or you, Conrad?
I'll lead off today.
Okay.
Now, in politics, there's passion and then there's expediency. Passion is idealism, getting a person up and over to vote proudly. Expediency is voting generally, leaning toward convenience and practicality. I find passion burns out and dies, losing to expediency, which ends up winning in the end. It's happening in the Democrat primary, the Republican convention, and Virginia Beach's 84th House District. Let me tell you how. The Democratic primary has solid candidates, the kind of talent showing strength of the state party. Justin Fairfax, current lieutenant governor, Lee Carter, a delegate, Jennifer Carroll Foy, delegate who stepped down to specifically run for governor, and Jennifer McClellan, current Virginia senator. An incredibly diverse field you think of when highlighting the Democrat Party, the party that sells itself as the best fit for minority communities. Then there is Terry McAuliffe, former governor, admittedly an older white guy, who's earned tens of millions as a banker, real estate developer, home builder, hotel owner, and internet venture capitalist. Big money and big name politics. And now with his entry in there, he sort of crowds out the field of truly promising and progressive candidates. His maneuver and likely easy victory in the June 8th primary exemplifies the Virginia way, a self-serving corporatist status quo, finding a way to stamp out the little guy and preserve the ruling class. The Republican convention, in my eye, didn't spare that. They selected Glenn Youngkin, former CEO of the Carlyle Group, worth himself over $300 million. There were significant amounts of my Republican friends who suggested Pete Snyder very hard. They also leaned into Kirk Cox, former Speaker of the House, and Amanda Chase has a great grassroots following. Many of those folks publicly admitted they didn't want to have to choose Youngkin, but with this being the selection, they now wish to fully support the nominee because the goal is to beat the Dems. That's where expediency comes in to suffocate passion. My good friend Monica is rightfully incredulous that the Republican Party ticket might actually come out looking more diverse than the Democrat ticket. And plenty of worthy and experienced minority candidates like McClellan were there for the picking. So on both sides, it is incredibly likely that they won't have who they're really wanting to vote for, and they just want to beat the other side. So expediency made a group psychosis that scared off people from dynamic politicians that would engage the whole base. And the same is true in Virginia Beach's 84th district. A years-long moderate Republican on the Virginia Beach School Board joined the Virginia Beach Democratic Committee and decided to run in the primary as a Democrat for a seat currently held by Republican Glenn Davis. By default, she's actually supported him before. And the political machines rallied around her, establishment Virginia money and educational money too. The crowding out effect takes hold again, stifling the ability of a bright, energetic, passionate Filipino progressive woman from seeking the seat. I've seen the comment sections, moderate Democrats in the area who might have easily have considered her if she ran unopposed, saw a mailer that the challenger put through stating Virginia Beach Democrats can see through the noise and they won't be fooled. And those moderate Democrats got rattled after reading it, believing the progressive challenger to be nasty. So they run to the known commodity who just so happens to be a known Republican. That's sort of the Virginia way, my Beach Brothers show friends. It's pernicious that way, and I want to use my soapbox to warn against it. Marcus, on to you. I think you're
nailed on
muted.
the head with that. I agree with just about everything that you were saying. So you nailed it. You hit the nail on the head. I think it's interesting. That's actually the ticket that I predicted was going to win. Was Youngkin, Winsome, and Miyares. I think the Republican convention kind of proved a few interesting things. It proved that the party still wants someone who can attract and win and satisfy Trump voters. That is very real. But they also want someone who is going to be a little bit more practical. I don't think they'll call it moderate. That's a really bad word when it comes to conservative politics, but someone who is practical. And Winsome Sears, I kind of knew that was going to happen when they kept trying to, one of the other lieutenant governor candidates kept making it a point to kind of diminish the fact that she came in late. And then they tried to do some polls. I mean, it looked like she was behind. She was a sleeper candidate. And she proves that the party is still looking for someone who is a solid conservative, but they do want someone who's authentic. Glenn Youngkin is authentically great at business. He's authentically smart. He's authentically talented. Winsome Sears is authentically a Marine, authentically conservative, authentically smart. You got Miyares, who's authentic in all of those same ways. At the same time, he's also practical. And I don't think they wanted someone who's establishment. Youngkin is very new to the game. Winsome Sears has been out of the game for almost 20 years. And Miyares is very practical. Again, I won't say minor, but very practical in the sense that he's also written gun legislation. He wrote the Minority Business Commission bill, and I personally appreciate that because I took it to him. But he's also done things with both sides of the party. It's well known that when you're a new delegate up in Richmond, Democrat or Republican, Delegate Miyares is going to help you at least learn the ropes, help you learn where things are, and just a genuine, authentically nice guy. So Republicans want authenticity. The Democrats have a little bit of a different thing. I guess we'll get to that later, but yeah, so that's actually the ticket that I predicted. I think it's going to be pretty formidable. I think it's interesting because if the Democrats do nominate Terry McAuliffe, you have Glenn Youngkin, who spent all that time at the Carlyle Group, and what they do is they analyze growth, where the money goes, where the money comes from, strengths and weaknesses. What else is a campaign but an organization that has money coming in, money going out, it has strength and it has weaknesses? You have Terry McAuliffe, who's won and lost. And the Carlyle Group knows the winners from the losers, so he has everything he needs to analyze the heck out of Terry McAuliffe's political career. And he's going to master that. To come out of nowhere in 3.5 months, beat the establishment at a game they invented. They never had. It wasn't a primary. It wasn't a convention in a hall or a coliseum. They made this up, and he still won. And now the Democrats are going to put him up against someone who's got a track record for winning and losing. It's almost looking like at this point they might need to go with someone who Youngkin can analyze like that. So
we'll look further into that going forward.
Interesting. So we already have the good sister Andrea saying that Terry is old news. That's interesting. Well, as you know, when I do my podiums, my background is in education, finance, and entertainment. So I often kind of bring in the music into the conversation. So there was a song by a beautiful young lady who I first met on Good Times. She was Penny. And she had a song, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" Ooh, yeah. And then there's this woman who is captivating, voice and in person, who has been belting out beautiful songs for centuries almost, it seems like, right? And her name is Stephanie Mills, and her song is "What You Gonna Do For My Lovin'? Tell Me Why." So hold on. What's this have to do with empowerment? Listen to the messages. What have you done for me lately? What you gonna do for my loving? So when we look at the politics of today, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, independent, red, black, green party, purple party, whatever. These are some of the questions that we really have to begin asking. So if we're looking at a Terry Mcauliffe, we might say, "What have you done for me lately?" Ooh, yeah. If we're looking at a Winsome Sears, "What you going to do for," not with, after, what you going to do for our interest, our love, our money, our vote? What you going to do for that? Jennifer Carroll Ford, what you going to do for that? Jennifer McLennan, what you going to do? Start asking these candidates, what have you done for me lately, and what are you going to do? And not only ask, but get them to put it on paper. Put it on the record. When I say put it on paper, they may not send you a contract, but they can put it on the record. If you remember, during the recent primary for the Democrat Party, the National Democrat Party, the question kept popping up, what are you going to do for reparations for the descendants of enslaved Africans here in the United States of America? And look, in the United States of America, never before have you ever heard candidates talking about reparations. Why did that happen? Because a number of us started saying, what have you done for me lately? What are you going to do for our loving? City Council, what have you done for us lately? What are you going to do for our loving? School Board, Lieutenant Governor, Governor, Delegate, what have you done for us lately? What are you going to do for our loving? And once we get them on the record, we need to push it. For instance, coming up very soon, the Hampton Roads Black Caucus is going to have a discussion on citizen review panels for police oversight. There are some places in the great United States of America where they already police the police. If you believe that everything should have oversight, we have managers at McDonald's. There are supervisors at your hospital to ensure that you get quality health care. If you believe in oversight, let your voice be known and ask them, what are you going to do for my continued loving? And if they're a candidate, turn that into a t-shirt. Salute the queen on that one. Yeah, so that's my podium for today. What have you done for me lately? What are you going to do for our loving? I'm Seiko Varner. My time is up. Peace out to Brooklyn. One love to my beloved country, the United States of America. 2 up and 2 down for VA. OHIO to planet Columbus, Ohio. Columbus is a planet. Brooklyn is a blood type. And we love you. So, Conrad, Marcus, who do we have sharing the stage with the Beach Brothers tonight?
Well, tonight's show will highlight a special grassroots organization. I came aware of this organization by my good Facebook friend, Tora. We will highlight the Democratic Youth Coalition. With us to represent the organization is Raya and Ashi. Ashi is the group's chief of staff, and Raya is the executive director and founder of the DYC. Thank you all for joining the show tonight. Let's have fun. I'll lead off. Let's begin with Raya and then move on to Ashi. Tell us about each of you individually, your general political history and your ideals.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here. And we both, I'm sure, learned a lot from your podium just now. And in terms of my general history, I'm actually in high school. So this campaign and this organization has kind of been a really big experience for me, and being able to lead it and being able to learn more about politics. We were actually started as the Youth for Joe Biden campaign, where we focused on mobilizing youth and just getting the Biden campaign connected with these youth voices on policies that are affecting youth. And in connecting the Biden campaign with that, and in kind of having a successful election where we were able to do all these goals that we had set out for ourselves, we chose to rebrand to become the Democratic Youth Coalition. And we're kind of focusing more on mobilizing youth voice in national politics outside of just a presidential election or a statewide election or a local election. It's really important to have consistent youth civic engagement, and we really want to embody that and really continue that forward. But I think in terms of a more personal note, an issue and kind of the ideals that I focus on is I'm focused a lot on education policy. Just being a young person and being a student, I think our voices are often not heard at the local level, and then kind of it just goes on from there at the statewide level and even the national level. There isn't really like a youth advisory force or really a youth connection to getting involved in education policy, especially considering we're the stakeholders in education. But I think that's kind of a summary about us, how we got here, and then a little more personal.
Yeah, to really echo what Ria said, first of all, thank you so much for having us, and to all the viewers who are celebrating Eid Mubarak to you. I'd just like to add on to that in terms of, personally, I'm not that interested in the politics or the political side of things. I am coming in as a college student with a science background. I'm studying environmental earth sciences, but I think it's just so important, and this is something I've learned along my journey with the Democratic Youth Coalition, to be involved, to be civically engaged in terms of caring about the policies that are coming out that are eventually going to impact us, regardless of what industry you work in. And I think Marcus exemplifies that perfectly, hearing about in terms of his involvement in business and stuff like that. So that really resonated with me. But personally, the values or the issues that I like focusing on: climate activism. I am a huge proponent for environmental justice and policies related to that, as well as women's rights. And I hope to further that within the Democratic Youth Coalition and really help students get involved, especially since a significant portion of our base can't actually vote yet, and to make them feel like their voice is important and they can actually talk to politicians and have their ideas be heard.
I'm a little curious. You mentioned that it started under a different name. At the moment, you guys were thinking about incepting your organization. Why? Why create it, and why continue it through 2021? What is the main why for you?
I think that there are kind of two answers to this. In terms of why create the Youth for Joe Biden campaign, I really saw that there was not really much youth opinion going into that national election. Following the primary, we knew that Joe Biden would be the Democratic candidate, and we really wanted to be there to support him and get youth out to the polls, but also create a movement where youth are connected to the Biden campaign and are able to provide their opinions. So one of the main campaigns we had in the Youth for Joe Biden campaign was a referendum campaign where we talked about different issues weekly, and we got youth voice on it through polling and just mobilizing our social media. But in terms of why we decided to rebrand and focus on the DYC, I think it really just came for a need for strong youth voice in all elections. I think we saw that our work was so beneficial to the Joe Biden campaign that we wanted to continue our work overall and just get youth involved and youth to the polls everywhere on the local level, on a statewide level, on a national level, and just getting them involved, and also getting politicians to focus on youth voice and really promote that on a national scale.
Yeah, Ria basically covers all of it. To just add a little bit, we're really hoping to bridge that gap between the youth and our local politicians that do make the decisions that impact our day-to-day lives, in terms of, like, especially coming from as a student, it can seem very daunting or very hard to reach out to your politicians and expect a response from them. And sometimes, they might not respond to individuals. We really want to create this group where our ideas can be heard, even if we don't currently have the power to vote.
I'm a little curious, how can this organization strive to foster a deeper and deeper swell of student activism? You're in school yourself, you just mentioned, so how do you grow it into students?
I think one way that we have focused on students and youth in general is that we really took advantage of social media and the fact that so many youth use social media, and there's so much content being shown on social media, especially TikTok. We were able to kind of take these complex policies and political issues and kind of create one small, like, 6-second video about that, and give it out to these youth and kind of create a place where youth can learn about the policies and not have to go through these really complex websites where it's really hard to fully grasp what the policies mean. And I think also Instagram has been really helpful for us in gaining traction and also just reaching out to these youth all over the nation and also the world. We have a few people from interacting with us from all globally. And I think that social media has just been so helpful for us. And I think it also has connected us with so many people and so many diverse perspectives.
Yeah. And to add on to that, just, we're not an isolated network. We never were meant to be. In that case, we always welcome collaboration. I think that's one of our group's main strengths, in that we don't want to be like a splinter group to other organizations. We want to work together, especially since we're a national organization, but we do so much stuff on the local and state level. We reach out to the Youth Dem chapters, to the College Democrats of America chapters, and we have contacts there and stuff like that, who we work with to promote not only our events, but their events as well. Because what we really are trying to do is, again, just increase civic engagement. And we'd like to do that in whatever way possible, whether it be through supporting these groups who have more people on the ground, or more aware of the local issues, the state issues, or just in any way possible.
I like to be able to reach as many political events in this area as I can, and I get there to and fro pretty easily in my 2017 Volkswagen Jetta, one that I just paid $184 in tax on, by the way, but I got it from Southern Volkswagen in Chesapeake on 1248 South Military Highway, and you can get one of those easy moving cars too, so just stop in and say hey to Charlie Roy. Hook yourself up with one of those cars and head over to all the political events you can get to as well. And I'm curious, If you all can tell us about some of the events and shout outs you might have gotten from notable people in the history of this organization.
Yeah, I can take that one. We had the amazing opportunity to meet with Alyssa Milano and sort of interview her in a question answer style format about her work in activism, her support for women's rights, and all the legislation behind that. In addition to that, we've held many issue-based panels as well as debates with candidates, including some in Virginia, which I do hope to touch on a little bit later. But I think we've just had this incredible opportunity to meet with so many candidates, with Alyssa Milano and other activists, to learn about their work and what they've been doing, whether it be strictly in the political sphere or activism outside. And it's just been a real gift that the organization has given me in terms of networking with all of these wonderful people who are doing so much.
And I think personally, a notable person that we were able to meet with is Abrar Omesh, who is actually a local school board member in Virginia. And though she is a local official and like there's not much intersection in our work, I was able to learn so much from her on education policy and getting youth involved. And I think that it's definitely true that a lot of local policies kind of transcend into statewide politics and national politics. And it was really interesting to gain that perspective. And I think that a lot of our events do have that perspective on it. So I think any of our events, even in events that we are not even located in the place that is being considered, we learn a lot. And I think it's been a really great experience.
And again, to just jump off of that too, we hold what I'd like to call bipartisan issue-based panels. Yes, our name suggests that we're affiliated with the Democratic Party. We're not officially affiliated with the Democratic Party. We do want to bring multiple different perspectives to the table, and the way we do it, or we go about doing it, is through these issue-based panels. We've had one on disabilities issues and ranked choice voting, and it's just such a great opportunity to go ahead and learn about, beyond like the surface level, what you're hearing and like the news or stuff, talking to people who are working on legislation related to that, talking to groups on the ground. We had the actually opportunity to talk to Rank the Choice, or Fair Vote Virginia, and Rank Vote Virginia as well. And then within disabilities issues, I know we talked to a couple of groups in Virginia as well about specifically state legislation regarding that and ways to get involved. So I think that's been really great in terms of the events that we've been able to hold. And since we've been holding them online, we're able to attract an audience from so many different places.
So if I can ask a question, Conrad, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit of a. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing some awesome things, but with the primary, with there's so many candidates right now, are you guys doing anything to have a voice in the primary, or to kind of drive that narrative at all?
Yeah, so we do have a lot of executive team members in Virginia specifically, and we have been focusing on the Virginia state election because it's such a consequential election, and it's also one of the few state races that are happening in 2021. So a few events that we did hold was the Virginia Lieutenant Governor debate, where we were able to hear about the perspectives that they had on youth issues and kind of compare the candidates from that lens. And then we also had a debate for the Virginia House of Delegates District 66. And that was really interesting for me to hear, especially since it's a statewide election. And we were able to really learn about the candidates from a youth voice lens as well. And I think that in terms of just this primary and the election in general, it's really important to have youth voting here as well. So we'd really love to encourage all youth to vote and get their voices heard.
Yeah, and specifically, we did hold the Virginia Lieutenant Governor debate where we had many of the candidates, actually Democratic candidates running in the primaries that you talked about previously, show up. And we we talked about climate issues, disability issues, and involving youth in civic engagement, just to name a couple of things. So I think that's how we're mainly trying to make our voices heard. We do this sort of mutual thing where we allow these candidates to talk about their platforms, as well as asking them questions that are important to us. So at least we get the conversation started about issues that are important to youth.
All right, I want to hop back in here with I think you guys have heard of before the concept of the marketplace of ideas. That I usually hear that along with the field about politics as a battle. The Hampton Roads area and the rest of the state has active groups of young Republicans, and the libertarian crowd is notably marked with younger folks. The great activists that we see in the streets the past 2 years, they're largely marked by young people as well. So how do you think you would market yourselves, both as an organization and as for Democrats, to a crowd in a competitive field like that?
I can go ahead and take that one. I'd just like to reemphasize the bipartisan issue-based panels that we hold in terms of with the issues on the policy side of things, while in the political side of things, that the candidates that we're interviewing, yes, are mainly running in the Democratic primaries. We do really want to encourage other perspectives. We want to be able to discuss on both sides of the aisles what people believe about certain issues. And we do that mainly through our issue-based panels, such as the disabilities one and the ranked choice voting one. Personally, I learned so much about ranked choice voting with our ranked choice voting event in terms of potential cons in for why ranked choice voting might be dangerous, and how results can be skewed and stuff like that. And I did not know about that previously. It helped me have a more nuanced view on the entire issue. And I just really hope that our organization can keep hosting events like that, where we can bring in a variety of perspectives and people from across the aisle to hear about, potential pros and cons of all the issues.
And I think also, going off of what Ashi said, I think a way we differentiate ourselves is that we focus our efforts on the national level. I think what we found a lot in working with different organizations is that they kind of divide up their work into chapters or committees or caucuses, things like that, where they focus more on a local level, and then the national level focuses on ensuring that these chapters are running smoothly. And a way we differentiate ourselves is that we kind of have a solely national platform. And though we do work in local elections in terms of events and debates, all of our leadership is at the national level, and we are focusing our campaigns on the national level and really kind of promoting youth voice at that level. And I think another thing that I would like to mention is that we focus on youth who are not eligible to vote, so who are younger than 18, and really provide them a voice in a sphere where voting is so important. It can be hard to kind of consider these opinions, and we really want to create a safe space for people to speak up about the issues that are important to them, and have politicians take them seriously and listen to them and implement solutions.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I got to jump in, Marcus. I got to do it. I got to do it. They're killing it. I'm impressed. Interesting. You're focusing on those who aren't able to vote yet in some areas, not that that's your total demographic, but I believe that's a really strong area. As a matter of fact, I used to talk a lot about how we can engage those who don't have the right to vote for whatever reason. They were either too young, they lost the right to vote, they may have newly immigrated to our great country, whatever the situation is. It's important that we organize those, because the politics of today impact everybody, not just those who have the chance to go to the ballot box. So I like that. So what do you say to gather the energy from those who are too young to vote? I mean, how do you make it important when there are a lot of, I don't want to say disenfranchised, but just disinterested youth? Because there are a lot of disinterested adults too. So I'm not saying this is a youth problem, because our adults are screwed up as it can be. But how do you get youth who aren't ready to vote yet involved in politics? I want to hear from both of you.
Okay, yeah. I think one thing that I have found in my experience, and I'm sure Ashi can relate to this too, is that it has not been hard to get youth to vote, not vote, get involved. I think that youth are ready, and I think youth have a lot of strong opinions because they do have these experiences, especially in education, of they may be experiencing things with discrimination. It may be hard for them to get to school, things like that. And they do have these experiences that can lead to solutions because they're the ones who are going through these problems every day. And they are really ready to get involved and get their voices heard. But I think that there definitely are some youth who, may not be interested in getting involved. And a way that we kind of work with that and make sure that there are more youth getting involved, more youth civically engaged, is that we really utilize social media, as we said before. I think especially by making educational posts that kind of put things in easy language that is easy to understand with lots of graphics and really ensuring that youth understand these different policies. I think that really helps because once they understand, they can go out and think about solutions. They can think about how this could be implemented in their daily lives. And also they gain the confidence to talk to these politicians about these issues because they have more knowledge on the subject.
Wow. I love that. I love that. One of the things that you said I thought was particularly interesting is they're impacted. You said that they're involved, they're interested because they're impacted. And when we look at a lot of the movements that have happened in our great country, we can, shoot back to the Queen Claudette Colvin, who was one of the first people to do hey, y'all ain't treating me right, I ain't getting off the bus. Prior to Rosa Parks, this sister Young, I think she was 14 or 15 when that happened. And because of her, the NAACP was able to say, hey, this kind of worked. We need to take this model and do something with it. And so the great bus boycotts that happened in the civil rights era, it all happened really because of that young sister. And interestingly enough, when we look back at the civil rights era, you're going to hear a lot of adults saying, I marched with King and da-da-da-da-da. But interestingly enough, the reason that they can say that is because their parents wouldn't do it. Their parents wouldn't do it. Their parents were like, y'all gonna get us all hurt. The parents were like, oh, this is just not the Christian way. We're just supposed to be timid, meek, and mild and take whatever America gives us and accept it. Those parents were scared to make the change. And it was a lot of the youth who were involved. When we look at Bloody Sunday, that with the Edmund Pettus Bridge, it was a lot of youth that were out there. It wasn't the elders. And so it seems to me like, United States of America, it's been the American way for the youth to catapult revolutions. So this is nothing new, but this is something that's great. And I'm so glad I see it continuing, because when we look at what just happened with the uprisings in 2020, the elders weren't out there initially. The elders went out there thinking that they were going to do something later. But many of the elders are like, oh, the marching don't work. We already tried that. America ain't going to change. And change happened. Ashi, what were you going to say? I know I kind of jumped in, but I was just so excited about Rhea saying it. They got involved because they were impacted. I think that's powerful.
No, and that's exactly it. And just on an organizational note, we do not discriminate based on your age or based on how much knowledge you have either. I think a lot of youth are disillusioned because of what they see in the media or stuff like that. We're here to talk about things. I came in, I love emphasizing this at almost every general meeting we have. Like, everyone in our org knows this. I come from a non-political background. I have the family members you're talking about who are just happy to be in the United States, living what they believe to be the American dream. And I think it's so important that our youth, and maybe what really differentiates us, is more than the disillusionment. I'd like to focus on the bravery and the courage that youth do bring, even regardless of their ability to vote. And it's just, we try to focus on, as an organization, the strategies for implementing new types of policy instead of the politics themselves. We want to invite voices to the table. Like, even if you don't know about it, well, that's why we're holding these issue-based panels, so that you can learn about it, so that we can learn about it. Because personally, as I've already said, I don't know as much as I probably should be knowing. And I think it's just so important to be open and welcoming to people who are in different stages of the political process, of the learning process, and give them a chance to share how they currently feel, but also see their growth as they learn more, just as I've grown by being part of this coalition.
So I have a little bit of a different question. It's kind of a different version of Seiko's question. So let me maybe phrase it a little bit differently. What do you guys do for maybe politicians who aren't necessarily ready to hear the youth? They don't think a lot of politicians don't think that the youth vote like they should. A lot of youth aren't making campaign contributions. So what do you guys do for the politicians that aren't necessarily ready to hear from you guys? Of course, Joe Biden wanted to hear from you guys because you're, youthful, energetic, and he was 78 years old, so he needed that whole youth aspect. So for candidates who can easily write off the youth, what do you guys do?
To those politicians, I say, regardless of whether you're listening or not, we're going to be out there. We're going to be expressing what we want to express until we're heard. Because the first step towards any change, real change, implementing any real change, is conversation. And if you're not willing to have a conversation with us, then we're going to keep pushing for it, because ultimately the youth voice does matter, especially with all these new issues coming up. I mean, Ria highlights education. I'm going to go ahead and highlight climate issues. It is an intergenerational issue. It is an intergenerational justice issue in terms of what we're doing now is harming the future generations coming. Like my parents, my grandparents, like, in all honesty, they're going to be gone when my generation or the generations after me are going to be dealing with these effects. So the fact that we don't have a voice in that, or you're not willing to hear our voice regarding issues like this, doesn't make any sense, given the fact that the impacts are going to fall on us. And this is just for climate issues. We can talk about it in terms of racial justice issues, environmental justice issues, education. Again, as Ria said, there's just so many issues that have a significant impact, again, just borrowing Ria's words, on the youth generation, that it makes it almost illogical not to listen to what we have to say.
So outside of that, so break down for me what you guys have going on. The Students of Today, America's Youth Town Hall, Youth to the Polls. What are those things about?
Yeah, so these are our three main initiatives that we have going on right now. And I think that they do kind of speak to your question on how we get these politicians to listen to youth. For example, the Students of Today, Leaders of Tomorrow campaign that we have, it is a campaign that establishes student advisory councils under boards of eds in local counties, local cities, so that students have a voice in the policy-making aspect of it instead of just in terms of activism. They have a voice in making these resolutions that are actually implemented and seen through. And we also establish a student delegate position in there, which is a student who sits on the Board of Ed. And I think that in terms of the America's Youth Town Hall series and the Youth to the Polls, they kind of go hand in hand, where the America's Youth Town Hall series focuses on these youth who cannot vote, who are under 18 years old, and creates town halls for politicians to speak with these youth only and specifically on issues that they think are important, and also kind of engage in a policy setting, like I said before, where it's focused on solutions to these problems instead of just the problems, and kind of just like these promises, instead of that there are actual fulfilled solutions that come from these meetings.
a good time, living their best life. I will ask maybe one more question, and it might not be fair, but so and it's almost a question in a way of almost giving some advice. So I've worked with both sides, Democrat and Republican, and both sides kind of shame me for it, and some and some are okay with it, some aren't. Now I know that there's some Democrats who don't understand how vital, because you mentioned climate change, how vital climate change is. Now, there are some Democrats who will talk to it, but at the same time, there are some Republicans who do, and maybe they don't even necessarily understand that they care about the environment and all that stuff. When they call it fisheries and wildlife and stuff, but that's still the environment. So, how do you guys, for instance, if there are youth, this is probably a good way to ask it. If there are youth, Democratic youth, in a Republican town, and that's just where they are. They're at their core, they believe in the Democratic Party, they support the Democratic Party, but if they're just surrounded by Republicans, how do they advance those causes of climate change that you're talking about? Do you guys work with them on stuff like that? I know it might be a weird way to ask the question, but do you guys have a way of kind of reaching into those areas and kind of helping them out and giving them some ways to speak to the people that might not seem to listen as much?
Yeah, that's honestly a wonderful question. And I think it's so important to address in terms of, I think based on the audience you're talking to, given specific issues, it's important to have different ways of explaining or different ways of going about it. Definitely for people who are worried about in terms of climate issues, whether it be like not believing in climate change, well, then there's like statistics and evidence to present in like a completely rational manner. And the thing is, you don't want to attack people for what they believe, because they believe something that they believe for a reason. And going after people for what they believe is not going to help us as a society or help even start a conversation. And that's what we're all about, like within this organization. But if it's disbelief, there's evidence and statistics. But if it's more of like where are our jobs going to go and stuff like that, which is an equally important consideration that we have to take into account like constantly. And of course, switching to greener energy definitely means like having to transition our economy. And there are definite cons to that must be acknowledged and addressed. There's still environmental issues related to that as well in terms of mining and extraction. So to be able to go at it from different perspectives, and I think that's what we pride ourselves on, is that we really do want to go in depth with all the issues that we cover by bringing in technical experts, by bringing in people who know stuff on, who have stories, personal stories to share, as well as bringing in the more technical side of things to go ahead and provide this space for people to learn, as I said, and maybe change their beliefs. But we really do just want to encourage conversation down in that vein. I don't think we're a big enough organization to currently target specific local areas, but it is something that we do want to work on and that we are actively working on, as in it is one of our priorities.
I know you guys are out of state of Virginia, but I wanted to see how much either commentary you might be able to have regarding this within the next month primary, or maybe you just want to touch on what the organization is doing in Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads and Virginia to target people as we want to get Democrats activated by June 8th. How might you speak to that?
Yeah, so we have held a few events in the past. As we mentioned before, the delegate debate for District 66 and the lieutenant governor debate. And we are definitely hopeful in having a few more of these debates or events as we get closer to the primary and even after the primary. And I think that in terms of speaking to like the politics in Virginia, I think that the most important thing is just mobilizing these youth to vote. I think that, as we have been saying, like voting has definitely become a privilege because there are so many people who don't have access to the polls or are unable to vote. And I think that it's definitely become a systemic problem. But I think that what we really want to do is to emphasize that if you do have this privilege to vote, it's very important to go to the polls and really vote for who you are passionate about and vote for the issues that you're passionate about by learning about these candidates and really just showing up and getting your community mobilized as well.
Well, I want to sort of zero in here as a final question here in an optimistic way, because I want to wish for each of you to give us your final thoughts and provide the viewers with all the social media contacts, websites, and such that you would like for them and other interested parties to get in touch with and join so you can grow in the next year.
Yeah. I'd like to just briefly touch on your previous question before. The reason why we did the Virginia Lieutenant Governor Forum with most of the candidates that you actually mentioned at the very beginning is so that there was like a condensed 45-minute to an hour video that gave people information on all of these candidates' platforms. We invited all of them, those who decided to come, they were able to share their ideas for policies and stuff. And we really hope that that recording can be of use to a lot of our Virginia voters in making decisions as to who they want to see, like past the primaries. But then in terms of just the organization, you guys are welcome to reach out to us at our email, dyccoalition@gmail.com. Ria and I are very, very active, so we respond to all of the emails personally. Our Instagram and Facebook accounts are also closely monitored, and we'd love to hear from you in terms of what you'd like to see from us or if you would be interested in getting involved.
I think we just had a commentator on our show by Mr. Tommy Rust, who happens to be running for office in Virginia, and he wants one specifically for the one he's going on for 91st. So I don't know if the organization wants to do like individual districts, but perhaps, you know, we'll think outside the box as to ways to try to bring you more opportunities to do shows like that and maybe more debates and stuff, because, you know, it's a long way to November as well. And of course, we would love to have you guys on in the future if you like the idea of sort of building that together with maybe the Beach Brothers show. So I'd like to look forward to that. I also want to give you guys just a great thanks for coming on tonight. This is it's great to watch someone and some individuals and or organization like this who are so youth oriented energize the people in such a fashion. So I want to give my thanks for not only coming on, but just doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having us. I think we also learned a lot, as we said before, and we're really grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, I second that completely. The questions you asked us were absolutely wonderful. It really helped me reflect as well on my entire journey in politics.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, thank you for joining us, and definitely hope to see more from you guys very soon over the next few months of 2021. All right. So have a great evening. Marcus, that was pretty cool. In my opinion, I'm glad to see that we have so much youth-oriented growth in politics. I felt weird back when I was 18 in Salem, and I was a lot more Republican back then, but I was interested in being in politics. So it's interesting to see so many people who are still in high school even doing great things politically. So I like that idea.
Yeah, I definitely hope that they keep it up, because as a lot of people get older, they get disenchanted with politics. So hopefully that won't apply to them. It'll be interesting to see which one of those two run for office first.
It's a good point. Good point. Well, Mr. Marcus, again, thank you for coming on as well. I like the idea of having you on as a sort of a guest host from time to time. And
I like it. It's a great idea you have here, Conrad.
Thank you. Thank you. Any final thoughts you might want to give the viewers? Just about the next month maybe in politics?
It's gonna be interesting. I predicted the Republican ticket. I'm gonna predict Mcauliffe and Razul and Herring, or it'll be Mcauliffe and Ayala and Herring. I don't see Jay being able to pull it off, but we'll see. I
Interesting.
would love for Jennifer McClellan to get it. I think Jennifer McClellan is wonderful.
Mhm.
I just, she has one of her counterpoints. I heard in one of the last debates where she said, Terry's plans aren't bold, they're old, which is true. Which is true.
That's how you win votes, is with good rhetoric. So,
Yeah.
Interesting how you came to the conclusion of the differences between Sam and Ayala as the possible leading candidates that you might think for lieutenant governor. Is it being a good way to represent the western parts of Virginia?
I don't know. I've met Sam Razul, super nice guy, very authentic.
He's a great guy, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Delegate Ayala. I haven't met her, but I've heard wonderful things about her. So, but I know Sam has more money, at least last time I checked.
I think she also picked up Northam's endorsement.
She did. So
we'll get to see how much endorsements per se, because it's sort of like, they all found great people to endorse. Many of them. It's not like they all went to Terry or something like that. So,
yeah.
Terry for governor. But yeah, you're right. It's going to be a great thing to see over the next month. And of course, it'll be just as choppy between now and November too.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mr. Marcus, for coming on tonight, and we'll definitely bring you on sometime soon.
All right.
All right, Beach Brothers Show viewers, thank you guys for watching tonight. I do want to give you guys a chance to look forward to next week. On the Beach Brothers Show, we will try to have on Gemmalyn Hewitt, who is a great business owner in the Virginia Beach area. We're going to highlight her business and herself, and then we're going to immediately parlay ourselves over to a quasi Beach Brothers / Hampton Roads Black Caucus show, specifically for the topic of civilian review panels, whether it's good or bad. So I hope all of you guys stay to watch not only the Beach Brothers Show, but the HRBC show, and have a great Thursday, May 20th of politics. So you guys look forward to that. I also hope that you have a great evening tonight.
It's never too early or too late to plan for retirement. Let me show you how to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your assets from loss due to catastrophic decisions that may affect you the rest of your life. Please call me.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes, we do tax resolution, we lend private money, and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.